How did you feel about me exploring your game? Were there any worries when I started reaching the end of the level?
No, it's always a bit scary when you see anyone try VR for the first time. So, well, I know it's not your very first time. I think it's your second time.
Like second or third,
yeah,
if I was
so
to be exact.
you're still early into VR, so it's always, as a games designer, it's always a bit scary seeing someone go through your tutorial, your first level, and see if we've done something good or bad sort of thing. So thankfully you survived, and
I have survived,
which is good. So.
My forehead was a bit red, but that's the that's the Oculus. This is not from the game experience.
Yeah, so blame Oculus. Don't do Biome Collective.
No, Biome Collective did not design Oculus. No, the game was magnificent. It was quite the experience.
Cool.
I'm really curious about the development because it was nice to enjoy this.
Yeah.
But knowing that I'll get to see more of these sort of planets with much different sounds, etc., is just quite cool.
Should I maybe talk you through it then?
Go for it.
Yeah. So what you played was a kind of almost like a prototype first level, and essentially it starts off with the kind of the mother seed landing on this kind of empty, barren planet, and as you experience, you collected these seeds, and as you planted these seeds, you were able to kind of start making music, so each plant was is a part of a song, and the planet itself is the song. So you're piecing together this kind of beautiful music as you play the game, as you kind of explore and figure out what is going on.
So technically, the universe is an album.
Absolutely, spot on. So that's the catchphrase, play the universe. So
I see.
Each planet is a different song, and that collection of planets or songs forms the album. And each album is a different, aesthetic, different plants, different sounds. What you didn't see was we've got the designs for the creatures to be in those planets as well. So
I find that very interesting. What's the sort of what are the gameplay features that the creatures bring in? Like if I was to be experiencing what I experienced, but with creatures in there, what would change?
Well, the best way to think about it is obviously the plants have a particular ambient kind of behavior patterns, right? You plant something, it grows, it starts to kind of produce seeds and make music, right? Whereas animals have a bit more agency, they're a bit more independent. And the idea is that as you're making this beautiful garden, these kind of wonderful creatures, kind of alien worms and wonderful crabby aliens, whatever, they're kind of appearing and doing their own thing.
I see.
So they're kind of almost, they're curious about what you're doing, your little garden, and they kind of behave in their own way, which in a way will challenge and surprise you, so they might,
Do the sounds change what they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So in a way they could apply modifiers to some of the sounds, so so there's a whole world of modifiers that we're exploring, which can be introduced to the creatures.
Would the animals be able to interact in terms of physics? Would there be any interaction between them and the plants, or would it be more like them just sort of floating around?
I think somewhere in the middle. I think that we always want to create this fully physics-based world, but reality comes in, and you can't always do that kind of stuff. But you can do elements of that, and it's like theatre, smoke and mirrors. For the player, you don't need to create the full world, but as long as you give them enough tools, enough possibilities, their imagination will kind of fill in the gaps. So,
what I find quite interesting is the possibility of putting in Easter eggs in form of maybe if you get this many plants and there is a certain leeway in this pattern, these animals, I don't know, get in the middle, maybe sing, something like that, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I love emergent gameplay or emergent behavior. When there's a kind of a rule set, there's a system, there's a rule set, but it's so complex that at some point, as a designer, you set that kind of groundwork, but the player then comes across new emergent behavior and kind of interactions. I love that.
Yeah.
As a player, I love doing weird and wonderful things in games that were never intended, or designed.
It often helps develop where the games go.
Absolutely,
go as well.
yeah.
So often you see this.
Like I was saying to you earlier, we've got versions of Garden where you've got this bucket, right?
What was the bucket? I'm very curious. I didn't ask when I was playing. What's the bucket? How do you use it?
The bucket is the best thing ever. So the bucket was really us playing around with the idea of collecting seeds.
I see.
So it was like, so you're collecting something, where do you put them? So, let's have a bucket. So you would kind of pick up and put them in this kind of bucket. But the cool thing in VR, you've got this bucket, you could kind of like scale it, make it smaller, larger. You can put it on your belt. Also, you can kind of wear it on your head as a hat. And it's just quite fun.
Almost like an adventurer's game.
Absolutely, yeah. So you can kind of dress up as you want, sort of thing. So, but yeah, games design and that process of making something is all about experimentation and being able to kind of quickly prototype and make things, you know. And that's why the UK Game Fund has been so instrumental for us in terms of giving us the opportunity to kind of take risks, kind of manageable risks, of course, and being able to kind of experiment with gameplay, with technology. So we know before making Garden in VR, we'd never really as a team, we've never developed VR, not to this extent. So to go through that process has been quite amazing. So not only have we got an amazing game, but also we also have the skill set within the team has developed a lot further.
That's great. That's wonderful.
That's been quite good. Yeah.
The game is it's very immersive, very immersive. It's quite the experience. I really am curious to see the development of the game personally. Like I'm very curious about the other planets, and also I want to answer your question which you asked me when I was playing is what the game reminds me of.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mentioned the making music on mobile, but another thing which is kind of becomes more obvious to me now is how it kind of takes on similar concept to No Man's Sky, but this is about creating music. So it's completely different, but at the same time, it's similar.
It's similar. I wouldn't go too far down that comparison because that's a special project. That's an amazing, Sean and the guys, a talented team, have done an amazing job with that project. That's a really high bar. I think this is a bit different for us because, again, I think we talked about this earlier about the audience, right? And I think that for us, especially with this project, we're really keen to kind of tap into new audiences who maybe people who don't consider themselves gamers, people who are, I think, are gamers. They enjoy different types of games, but don't necessarily call themselves gamers. And I feel I want to kind of bring them in. I think that, especially in VR, because there's so many action things, for early adopters, that makes sense. Lots of fast-paced action games. Whereas Garden is a little more mindful, more relaxed. Creativity in VR works really well. There's lots of kind of amazing art tools, and in a way, Garden is a music tool as well.
It is like I said. My first comparison was I compared it to a music tool, which I played with during my childhood. So
awesome, and that's high praise for me to hear that because I think what we're trying to create in terms of the music tool is a tool that allows anyone to be able to to create music and it to sound amazing and for you to share that in a way that's very accessible. I think I mentioned this to you earlier that I love music, different genres of music. I've always kind of grown up with music all around me, but I am rubbish at making music. I don't have the mindset, the talent, anything, whether it's physical talent, mental, whatever it is, I don't have any of that. In fact, I learned the recorder when I was about 7 and I never got past that. It was so bad, really awful sound. So in a way, what Garden does is allows someone like me, who's rubbish at making music, to be the system, the underlying system, allows me to create my own music, but the system helps curate that sound. So it kind of keeps it within a particular kind of range or rhythm, just to kind of, keep it beautiful, So, because you can make horrible sounds quite easily, right? Just bashing things
That's
together.
something that I mentioned because I was planting stuff around. There were moments where I would just mash the button, just put about 3,000 plants right in this corner, right? See what happens. So I did that, and it was fine. It's not like my ears were about to blow up.
No, it's all good.
It was very much. It works well together. It's like adding water to water. Just kind of.
Absolutely.
There is just more of it,
Absolutely. That's kind of what our intention, So, it's been really good to kind of see people play it and hear that kind of feedback. I think what university liked. It's really interesting, for us developing it.
What about the visuals? As an upcoming per se game designer, I sort of was wondering where did the inspiration for the visuals come from? Why was it dark during the?
I think obviously one of the biggest themes is kind of to do with nature, the natural world. So the natural world is a big inspiration, especially kind of, recent documentaries like in Blue Planet, etc., where, we've been able to kind of access weird and wonderful creatures under the sea.
You mentioned you had actually a video used for your inspiration. Is it on YouTube or is that?
I've got one here I can play if you want me to.
No. I was just wondering if we were maybe if it was on YouTube, we could just tell people that there would be a link.
Well, in our teaser trailer, which you shared earlier, that showed elements of our inspirations. Yeah. Lots of amazing creatures and kind of tiny creatures that are kind of filmed under the microscope, etc. Underwater creatures, amazing, beautiful colors. So a lot of that kind of black background comes from that kind of almost like the deep sea, etc.
There is plenty of contrast. The contrast is so strong, but I'm very glad the colors actually work together.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure because I kept collecting these seeds.
Yes.
But the colors they went fine together,
Yeah, absolutely. So we picked particular colors to allow you to do that. But I guess also another inspiration, which maybe didn't come across too much in the demo that you played, was the kind of time lapses. And when you leave a camera and you do a time lapse on a plant, because obviously when you plant something in real life, it takes
takes a wee bit longer than in this
game. A bit longer than in garden. So that kind of time lapse effect of things juddering and moving in super speed essentially was a big inspiration. So time is something that we're playing with in the game in terms of how long things take, etc.
I think this inspiration actually is more clear than you may think, because subconsciously it might have been in my mind because of the yellow plant, which I mentioned. Because it has that, when plants grow, they have like this. They have to
almost
pick
like
up sort of pick up the weight, and that's sort of what the yellow plants did.
That's right. Yeah.
So in terms of that, you can relate. The sea, the purple one, for me was the sea. Green one, I don't know, just fun.
You love the green one.
The green one is just nice.
You guys didn't hear him, but he kept saying, "I love the green one."
The green one was very fun. Very fun stuff. There was the yellow one, the purple, the green,
the red.
The red was
thin, like a lily pad almost.
Exactly.
Mushroom, even a mushroom.
Would you ever consider putting any patterns or these, or would it only be like color-based plants around the planets?
You mean patterns or
patterns? Maybe
textures and things.
Textures.
I think we've stumbled on quite a unique neon aesthetic that doesn't necessarily need that. However, I'm a big fan. I think we're all big fans of kind of that ambient inclusion look as well. So there are different ways you can approach that. I think. Again, we're trying to be experimental in the aesthetic and to stand out, because I think games look beautiful. People are attracted to that, and we're in the business of selling games, and you've got to stand out in quite a crowded marketplace. So you have to kind of explore different styles, different aesthetics, and so for us, this was a chance to do that. So things like textures and that kind of level of detail. It's quite common practice in games. You model something, you put a texture on it, you like that. And we're trying to do things a bit differently, just to achieve a different look.
Absolutely.
I think you can take shortcuts, and that can really help you. So
I see.
There's actually a lot of it is shaders. It was all animated, it was all kind of fluidy. So a lot of the materials were shaders that I think is quite a cool way to do it.
I see. That's cool. No, I absolutely understand that. It sounds like you got a very much. It sounds and it looks like you got a very much stylized game.
Absolutely.
You got sort of the key look you want to move forward with,
absolutely.
and that's absolutely fine. I'm actually personally, I'm a fan of like cel-shaded video games. So not having textures is not something that puts me off at all whatsoever. I come from a gaming background where I used to play very, very simple, almost like games with art done in paint, sort of web browser games. So never been too huge on textures myself. So
cool.
I understand sort of the reasoning why you would.
That's the cool thing. I think that the cool thing about games is that lots of diverse people make them, right? As the tools are getting easier, more diverse, wonderful people are making them, and they're trying different approaches. So like my pal Jackie Spooner, who does like claymation, right? And he'll do claymation, capture that. He's game maker, bring things to life. So there's different approaches which I like, and I think as game makers we need to be encouraged to do more of that because there's just so much cool stuff you can do, man. So much. The worlds are out there to be explored. So.
I agree. Something that I love game making for is that you get to create your own world in a way. There's so much freedom of creativity.
Absolutely.
Whatever you can think, you can make. If you can think it, you can essentially make it. Might take some time, but but you can make it.
Absolutely.
It's quite incredible to me. Now that we are on that, any pro tips you would give to sort of indie upcoming developers? Other than look for funding?
Of course, funding is important. Funding helps a huge deal, obviously. So, we're a small collective, we're a studio, and in the past we've benefited from funding, but also, work for hire is really important. You need to make sure you secure contracts, etc. But in terms of the kind of more inward process, I think it's important to be experimental, right? I've seen more things come out of game jams than I've seen most of our studios actually. And game jams allow you to be experimental and take risks because you're not worried about the audiences or whatever. So you gotta just make something, right? And see what happens. So it's really important that kind of, especially indie teams, to be experimental, try things. And sometimes that's really hard to take those bold steps. However, one way to do it is through the team. I think sometimes I would definitely encourage teams to be as diverse as they can be. Obviously, in terms of everything, whatever, kind of gender, ethnicity, all that includes that. But also beyond that, I think it's important in terms of discipline. So in terms of, your practice, programmer, artist, blah, blah. I think sometimes we rely on these traditional roles a little too much. And I think sometimes we need to make sure that more people are part of that creative process.
To the table. I very much understand what you're saying. Like sometimes even a programmer might have the game idea you actually need,
Sometimes we hold on to these roles a little too much. I mean, absolutely. If you're the programmer, I'll trust you to do the programming. And if I'm an artist, I hope you trust me to do the art. But the idea is somewhere in between us, right? And even in terms of my art practice, your opinion is valid. In the same way that maybe if you're having a bit of problem with programming, I'm not going to solve it for you, but my unique perspective might help you solve it. So I encourage people to kind of make sure that the team is very diverse, to allow people who don't come from a games background to be part of that process. That's really important. And in that way, we're going to get even more diverse games, just better games, quite frankly.
I feel like it adds value to the product you're making as well.
Absolutely.
Because someone could be a programmer, but then you have designers just cracking on with the idea, and then they're like, program this. Whereas if they are part of that process, they get much more immersed, engaged in this sort of development.
Absolutely.
As well.
And then also, I guess another kind of area that I'm definitely still learning about is kind of, like you're a streamer, you're streaming content, which, that's kind of new for my age group, right? Kind of younger generation kind of grew up with that. And I think we need to embrace that as game makers, as independent studios, and just really take advantage of being part of a community. I think that's what it's all about.
It's great.
On one level, it's about the marketing and all that kind of stuff, which is totally important. You're selling a product here, so you need to have a good fit product, and you've got to communicate and sell that. And that's streaming is part of that process. Also, it's about being part of a community.
Yeah, I mean, streaming is pretty much most of it is community. One thing that streaming is like renowned or like huge for is the fact that it's like a platform for, at least Twitch, is like a huge platform for gamers. This is where gamers can find themselves with
their voice.
Exactly. This is where they connect. You still get plenty of different sort of interests within the site, etc. But mainly we're all gamers, at least most of the people. And it's hard to also, when you are broadcasting, you are just you. It's not pre-recorded,
It's real.
It's real. That's the thing. It's real, and there is no way. I am real. I am very real. And there is no way to not connect with someone when you are streaming. So it's very.
Also, I think it helps us find niche audiences.
Yeah.
Because not everyone's into that thing that's popular that everyone's into, but because of the internet, because of streaming and things like that, because of these tools, we can find niche audiences, right? And that works in two ways. As an audience member, as a player, it's good to kind of connect to people who enjoy the things I enjoy. But then also as a creative game maker, it's good to find people who enjoy my creative output, you know. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a very useful tool, and it should be seen as a community thing more than a marketing thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll be honest with
you.
you.
It's both.
I think
like and subscribe, all that.
Yeah. We are still working on the subscription button. We need to do streams more often, actually, because there is a certain sort of requirement how often we have to stream, etc.
Right.
So we'll get there. We'll get there.
Forget that.
But yeah, actually, in terms of a bit more on streaming side, actually, I feel like you have to actually do it more for the community, because I feel like if you do it for the marketing, it's hard to find success.
Yes.
Actually, which I also noticed personally within the site as well. The huge live streams there with 20,000, it's usually people who made the community, you know. People go there because of other people.
Absolutely.
You would think they are going there for just to watch that one person, but they're going there to be part of what's happening, rather than just watching the one person. We kind of went off topic. Back to game making. Back to Biome Collective.
Yeah, sure.
What's the future for the studio? You have some big plans?
We always have big plans.
Good.
Whether they're going to be real or not is a different matter. So I think, Biome Collective, we're not a normal studio. We're quite different. So we're a collective, and we're kind of a community, really. So we're a co-working space and a collective of independent game makers. So it's about, I think, maybe 20 of us at the moment. And some of us are full-time game devs. Some of us are academics. One person is actually studying, doing a PhD. So we're a mixed bag of people who are kind of going on this journey together of trying to figure out what games are, what we can make collectively, how we can make games, how we can make them differently, how we can kind of be more diverse in our process and our output. So it's a very experimental group, and it's also a kind of community for people who want to do things differently.
It's pretty new to me.
Yeah.
I remember as I was sort of looking into Biome Collective before our stream, I was looking into what you do, etc. I went onto your website, and it's a very much it's a variety of things. That I saw some like light shows. There was some stuff you've done on VNA opening.
I
believe.
Right.
Quite a broad,
very broad perspective.
Very broad.
Yeah, very broad range of work. I can't speak. And it's actually, in some regards, it can be confusing for people to say, well, you know, what does Biome do, whatever. So that's quite a challenge we have internally, is, you know, what is our external narrative. But what's really important for us is that, and you know, we've been going for about 5 years now, and that's quite a short spell of time. And in that time, we've had such a diverse range of projects. You know, light shows, interactive light shows, interactive installations.
You can check those on the Biome Collective.
Yeah, absolutely. So like some of the highlights include the VNA project was amazing. You know, it was kind of live on BBC Scotland, the grand opening of the VNA Dundee, and we were charged with kind of making kind of an interactive performance. So we used gaming technology, you could say, to kind of make quite an interesting light show. So it looks like projection mapping, but it wasn't projection mapping, it was all lights. So we animated a bunch of dynamic lights, and you know, we created a soundscape, and it was quite cool.
I really very much like the idea of you just having a bunch of creative people, and whatever you can think of,
we try,
make it
absolutely.
So if you got the skill sets, you will use it.
And that's the unit. When you have a community of different skills, the possibilities are quite amazing, actually. So that's what we've been able to do. However, at the same time, you know, we're all professionals. This is our kind of practice. So we, you know, making products, making money is an important part of our process. So whether it's kind of our commissions or even game fund support, that's helped us do what we do. But we're kind of scaled up, and we're doing a lot more interesting projects with different clients, etc. So
you mentioned you scaled up. So at what stage sort of during your company growth, you reached out to the Games Fund for this boost?
Well, and very early on, in fact,
I
one of the reasons why we incorporated in the first place was because we used the Games Fund. Because we for over a year we didn't incorporate as a business because we've been quite fluid. And you mentioned things like company growth. We're not really interested in company growth.
Maybe I used the wrong term.
No, that's the right term. You know, company growth is the normal term. You know, generally speaking, you have a company and you want to grow it, and that's literally a numbers game. However, because we're trying to grow our ambition and our ability to deliver that, it's a different approach to kind of growth. So we're trying to do more ambitious projects, and projects that don't just bring money in, but they also consider the social and the cultural aspects of what we do. They put just the content out. Wow. Yeah.
I quite like that. I think the better representation of your company growth is actually the portfolio of the works you do, rather than the numbers you mentioned.
Exactly. So we've been very lucky to do some amazing projects in the past 5 years. But it's also very challenging because, as I said, we're not a traditional studio, so funding can be quite a bottleneck at times. So we have to do, some of our work is not necessarily that fun and exciting, but it pays the bills. So we've got to do a bit of both.
Yeah. I see. Oh, that's great. Let's see.
Do you have any questions from the community?
Do we? Community?
Have you got a question? You're the community.
You're the community. We have a bunch of questions. The list is over at the behind the scenes.
We have a whole team putting the stream together.
We can discuss the controller for a wee second. Would there ever be dual wielding within Garden? Have two plants at once.
Yes, we've already got that.
Oh.
Yes, that's the one question you asked me. Yes, dual wielding. Yeah.
Here we go. We got an essay of questions.
Yeah, from the team. The whole team of guys behind the scenes here.
Huge crew.
Massive crew.
We kind of answered most of them, actually.
We're ahead of the team.
I'm curious about this one.
Go on.
What was the most game-breaking bug you had?
The
game-breaking bug that you had to fix in Garden?
In Garden?
Yeah.
Wow. We've had loads.
Is there that single one that you think back? Like,
I mean, the ones that I like were the bugs which were fun, which things like when we had the seeds, and obviously we had the game's physics engine kind of kicked in, and so you'd kind of pick up these seeds and you start juggling them. And I remember, I think one time it was like it ended up causing the thing to keep triggering the spawning of the seeds. So there's like hundreds of these things popping up in the middle of nowhere. That was quite fun. The bucket, the magical bucket that keeps going about.
Anyway, here's so much about the bucket. We
incredibly buggy. That was so buggy, but it made it so much more fun, So like you'd expand the bucket, you'd wear the bucket, then you can't get out of the bucket, and you are the bucket, and then that was it. You were the bucket. Yeah.
Would there ever be multiplayer?
Absolutely. So one of our ambitions for the project is to make a shared experience. So how that's done is to be confirmed. But
I think there is plenty of
absolutely
stuff to conceptualize.
I mean, on a very basic level, exporting your garden to your friend and saying that's cool, that's done. But beyond that, in the same space, playing or remotely, there's different possibilities that we're going to play with.
Okay, we actually got a question from chat from Sikius. Were you inspired by the philosophy of the musical universalis?
Yes.
There we go.
I actually, forgive me, but I'm not sure I get the reference. But to be honest with you, the amount of input in this project has been quite amazing and broad. Because obviously, like, you're speaking to me, Mal from Biome Collective, but like Biome was, we're about 20 odd people, but the team behind Garden in particular, Gaz, Albert, and Tom,
shout out to them.
Shout out to
Good
guys.
job on the game.
Good job, guys. 3 amazingly super creative people, programmers, artists, everything, right? And we all put a different influences into the project. So really, in terms of the sound, the generative system, etc., Tom led that. So I'd fire that question to Tom. who might be listening. Hi, Tom.
Hello, Tom. If you are listening, answer the question.
Answer the question, Tom.
This is a good one. Was there part of the game which you expected to be difficult to implement, but turned out to be easy? So like a nice surprise in development?
It was mostly just really bad, painful, and like honestly, a lot of it, working in VR is not fun. It's awful, in fact. Having to wear the headset to test something, on off, it gets sweaty, leaves marks on your head.
Yeah, I experienced some.
Having to do things from scratch, especially with our talented programming team who were not into using the asset store. They were more keen on building things from scratch, which can be problematic. But it meant that when we built the thing, it was damn good.
It was your thing.
It was really good. So that's why the movement in Guardians is unique and it's done really well. So shout out to Gaz for sorting that out. Before that, we were all throwing up, and that's not good.
Did you ever have a situation?
No, I've never thrown up. But for some people, that's real. So that's not a joke.
Yeah, I know. During my university studies, we had an opportunity to do some VR testing.
Yeah.
And actually, the first thing the developer asked us is, "How's the movement?
Yeah.
You feel busy?"
Yeah, honestly, the movement.
First
the movement took up most of our time. Trialing different approaches, and we had so many different systems. And really, what was fascinating was we did all this trial and error. And the version you just played, that came together very quickly right at the very end. So the creative process was very chaotic and lots of trial and error, learning. And it actually could be quite stressful because you're thinking, you've got a deadline, you're trying to create something that's beautiful, that feels good, but the closer you're getting, the further away you are. But actually the reality is every step we're making, we're getting closer to what we want to achieve. And so much learning was generated, it was amazing.
I have a nice analogy for this. It's almost like playing Tetris where you stack all the blocks.
Yes.
And then you hold that straight one to put it off to the side and plenty of content done.
Yeah.
Another question from Sifius also. What game would you primarily ascribe Garden to?
That's a good question. Good question, man. I like that question. I think that, so we've had a go at this because part of selling a game, especially something that's a bit more unique and new, is you have to be able to describe it to someone who hasn't played it, right?
Yeah.
In an email or in a pitch deck, etc. So we worked on this quite a while. What is it? How can you describe something like something else when it's brand new? But I guess the best way to describe it is it has the kind of the relaxing gameplay of Flower. Flower, where you that game's company. Beautiful game.
I would have to look it up.
You have to look it up.
Personally,
beautiful game. That game's company, the guys who made Journey and Flow.
Oh.
So it's the game between Flow and Journey.
I should have known them.
Beautiful game, really relaxing kind of gameplay, right? So there's elements of that relaxing kind of gameplay. And then in a way, have you played Rez?
No.
Dude, you gotta play Rez.
I gotta play
Amazing, amazing music game, like neon. Oh, you gotta check it out.
I'll have a look.
With that game, to a certain extent, the look of the game, but more the musicality and kind of creating a musical environment in the musical world, right? And lastly, Viva Pinata. Have you played Viva Pinata?
It rings a bell.
Okay. Oh my God. So Viva Pinata, in a sense, what we're bringing from that world is the nurturing and the gardening, right?
Was that not a game that came out on
Xbox? It's a rare game.
I think.
Beautiful game.
I didn't know of it.
I love that game so much. And in a way, what this kind of, I'm influenced, and the whole team influenced by different games, different mediums, film, artwork, the planet, space, everything, right? We're inspired by everything, right? So you can't. It's not always true to say it's a bit like this, but sometimes you have to. You have to pinpoint it. And really, in a way, by picking those games, Flower, Rez, and Viva Pinata, we're giving you the idea of the grand vision of the project, So, hope that answers the question from the community.
Yeah. I think it's very true that, like you mentioned, it's sometimes good to compare to something in order to pitch quickly. That's something we've been sort of taught during academics as well. You could say this game is like this one, but with this mechanic. And it already makes someone imagine what it would be like, how it would work. Also, on the imagining side, I think what really grabs the attention of the player from the very start within Garden is the fact that you mentioned different planets, different sounds.
Yeah.
To me, that was like eye-opening.
Boom.
If it was to be the case of this is just the experience, I'll be like, okay, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice for maybe for one day, right? But the fact that I can go to the other planets is like, nice. Can't
then
wait.
That's the kind of hook. That's the hook in terms of, all right, I know my journey, you know. So at the moment we're exploring two versions in terms of getting this out to marketplace. There's the kind of the big grand vision that is, you know, all singing, all dancing, is, you know, has 10, 12 levels or whatever. But that's the big project that we're still working on. However, there's a version that we're trying to get to marketplace much sooner than that, which is possibly as few as 3 planets, to give you that sense of variety.
That still gives you what I just described.
Exactly. It's the kind of the minimum of what you want, you know, as a player. You want to be able to jump in and know that this is fun, but you know how it's going to grow and develop, you know. So
a bit more on the developer related question. How would you go about having players travel from one planet to another? Do I teleport? Do I whoosh through the space, or is that still a secret?
No, I mean we've got.
I think whooshing would be cool.
Whooshing is cool. I whoosh everywhere. So no, that's it's a good question. So I think my colleague Tom has always had a very strong idea about this in terms of the mother plant, the very first one that hits the ground and then grows this beautiful, you know, massive thing. That's kind of your entryway into the level, but also your exit.
So I wasn't totally wrong calling it a spaceship.
No, you're not. That's why I laughed, because I think you got it spot on. So in a way, what you're doing level to level, you're trying to create balance, harmony on that level.
I see.
And once you've achieved that balance, what essentially is going to happen is that will open up a portal for you to go to the next level if you choose. You can stay there, do your thing, but you're able to then go, all right, let's explore the next planet, you know. So and whoosh, you whoosh.
And whooshing is good.
Teleport portal thing, and you whoosh. Whooshing. Whoosh.
Any last questions from the chat? We're going to be wrapping up soon as we are reaching our.
No, I think thank you and the team.
And the team. Huge team right behind. We have a last question. Okay, last question, and we wrap up.
The community is buzzing. There's probably like 2 people watching this.
Step by step, we're getting.
Including the team.
When I started personally, when I was in early days of my streaming career per se. There were times where I would have one person watching, but I was determined and I would stream for up to 5 hours.
Wow.
But over time, it's a snowball effect. Over time. It really is a snowball effect. It takes a while to get started.
Do you, as a streamer, do you see yourself as a performer?
Maybe, not necessarily. I like just being me.
No, I get that, but if you perform, it doesn't mean you're someone else. I think I'm saying, are you yourself a performer? And is that who you are in a sense?
I can't answer that question actually. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Am I performing? I do like entertaining people. Does that? Maybe I am a performer.
I think you are. There's nothing wrong with being a performer, man. It's cool.
No.
You know.
It's a cool title.
And you know, being a performer doesn't mean you have to, you know, sing a shot. You could be quite chilled out. You know, you're performing through what you're playing. You know, you're because sure that's what you're sharing with people. You know how you're approaching a game and your journey, and you're sharing that with people, right?
I'm not a streamer for UK Games Fund. I'm a performer for UK Games. This is unofficial. Oh, long question. Okay. Would you eventually like to have something a bit like a Sporopedia, where people can bring other people's creation into their game space?
Absolutely,
From Sophie's instance.
Absolutely. That's another question. So really, in terms of a garden, the sharing side of it is really important to us, because one of the challenges with VR is that it's a very insular experience. So we're trying to break that barrier by, you know, bringing people in into your space, but also, you know, you being able to share your garden. So a very simple way is to kind of create your beautiful garden, and you can then put it up, and then people can download it. It's almost like a top 10 list for that planet, different music tracks, you know. So and that way I can download your song and I can remix it. So that makes it really interesting.
Something about remixing. I sometimes I look at games from like sharing perspective as well, and something that I would find interesting is if you open a planet almost like a lobby for players to join.
Yeah.
And then you have people just
jamming,
whooshing down randomly, and you see yourself turning around, and they just start planting their plants.
Whooshing and jamming. There you go. Whoosh and jam. There you go.
Okay. So that was the last question. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, man. It's lovely to meet you.
Absolutely.
And thanks for playing the game.
I
really appreciate the feedback.
Yeah,
so,
great.
And yeah, if you want to stay in touch, they can, you know.
What's your Twitter, social media?
Yeah, so
let's go.
All Biome Collective at
BiomeCollective.com.
I'm Maltron3D on Twitter, but follow BiomeCollective.com. We're being very proactive in sharing our process recently. We're getting better at sharing. So it's an account worth following. So yeah.
Follow Biome Collective. You have UK Games Fund Twitter under our channel as well. I was talking to Mal today from Biome Collective, and it was being broadcasted to you by Bartosz and my friend Kieran, who was doing some behind the scenes stuff. And
Kieran's the whole team.
Kieran is the whole team.
I think Kieran should say come say hello. But he's... No.
Yeah.
Kieran that's the next video.
Next video. Maybe it will be a DLC for this.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Big thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.